Every retirement plan needs you to save $1 million, then rationally sell it off year by year after you hit retirement to live off. But what if 35 grand in the right ETF reaches that same $1 million and pays you more than your job every month without you ever selling a share? In this video, Josh has $35,000 to put into one ETF. The fund has to do two things: grow into $1 million and pay him more than his job every month forever. 4 funds make the short list, and only one winner. By the end, I'll show you how the winning ETF is projected to pay Josh $5,623 a month by year 30. Plus, a bonus version reaches the same $1 million portfolio and pays you over $5 grand a month, even if you don't have 35 grand and you're starting from zero savings. Before Josh picks a fund, he needs to know what he's chasing. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says the average full-time worker in America earns about $1,235 a week. That works out to about $5,350 a month before taxes, or roughly $4,100 a month after federal and payroll taxes hit. That's the bar the ETF has to beat, not the account balance, the monthly income. But there's a second bar. Like we said at the start, every retirement plan tells you the same thing: save $1 million. So the fund also has to grow 35 grand into that million. Josh wants both. So Josh writes down 4 things the fund has to do. 1. Pay a meaningful dividend right now. A 1% yield won't get him anywhere. The fund has to pay real money from day one. 2. Grow that dividend every year. This is the one most people miss. A dividend that doesn't grow gets eaten alive by inflation. The payment has to climb with time. 3. The share price has to appreciate. Josh isn't trying to set his account on fire, but it can't shrink either. If the dividends are great and the stock price collapses, he's lost the game. 4. Track record. Long enough to trust. The fund needs to have lived through at least one bear market. If it hasn't been stress tested, the projection is just a guess. 4 boxes. Every fund Josh looks at has to check all 4. So Josh starts where most people would. He looks for the biggest yield on the screen. He finds JEPI, the JP Morgan Equity Premium Income ETF. Dividend yield around 8.46%. That's huge. Most dividend ETFs pay between 2 and 4%. JEPI pays double. So how does it pull that off? JEPI holds a basket of large US stocks, names like Microsoft, Amazon, MasterCard, the usual heavyweights. But here's the part that makes it different. Every month, JEPI sells options on those stocks, basically renting them out to other traders for a fee. Those fees are what jack the yield up to 8.46%. On paper, this looks like the answer. Here's the problem. JEPI launched in May 2020, so it's only got about 6 years of history. And in those 6 years, the dividend has grown less than 1%. It's bounced up and down based on how volatile the market was that year, but the average payment hasn't moved. And the second problem, JEPI doesn't grow the account either. When the market rallies hard, JEPI's stocks get called away near the option strike price. Josh gives up the upside in exchange for the monthly income. On 35 grand over the long run, JEPI doesn't get anywhere near that $1 million target. 2 bars. JEPI could pay Josh if he reinvests his dividends, but the share price growth won't help him reach $1 million. That's the trade, and that's why JEPI's out. So if high yield doesn't win, what does? Josh flips the question. Maybe he's been thinking about this wrong. Maybe he should just buy the market and let it do the work. He pulls up VOO, Vanguard's S&P 500 ETF, the most popular ETF in America. It holds the 500 biggest companies in the US: Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, all of them. It's the default answer for almost every beginner. VOO has crushed the market on total return. Over the last 10 years, it's been up more than 250%. Massive growth. But here's where it falls apart for what Josh needs. VOO's dividend yield is barely 1.05%. On 35 grand, that's about $30 a month in dividends today. And even after 30 years of growth, the projection comes out to $100 to $140 a month. The portfolio would grow over $1 million easily, but the monthly dividend won't be even close to Josh's target. Look, VOO is built for one thing: growing the account. It was never designed to pay you. If Josh's goal was just the biggest balance at year 30, VOO would be the answer. His goal is the biggest monthly check while still hitting $1 million portfolio. 2 bars. VOO hits one and misses the other completely. so VOO is also out. Josh needs something that pays like JEPI but grows like VOO, so he goes hunting. He finds DIVO, the Amplify CWP Enhanced Dividend Income ETF. Dividend yield of 6.44%. Pays every month. Holds about 37 dividend-paying U.S. stocks: Caterpillar, Microsoft, American Express, Visa. Big, profitable companies. The yield's strong, the payment hits every month. It checks the income box. But again, DIVO doesn't just hold those stocks. It sells options on them every month. Same playbook JEPI runs, just with a different basket of companies. The extra income comes from the same kind of trade-off. When the market rallies hard, DIVO leaves a chunk of the upside on the table. Here's what the trade-off costs. Over the last 5 years, the S&P 500 returned about 92% on total return. DIVO returned about 65%. That 27-point gap is the price of the strategy. When the market rallies, DIVO leaves a lot of the gains on the table. And there's one more problem. Remember Josh's fourth criterion, track record long enough to trust? DIVO only launched in December 2016. That's less than 10 years. It hasn't lived through a full market cycle yet. No real bear market, no real stress test. But here's the bigger problem, and this is the one that actually kills it. Look at the fees. DIVO charges 0.56% a year in expense ratio. The income looks good, the strategy comes with strings attached, and Josh wants a fund he can trust to hold for the long term. DIVO hasn't been around long enough to earn that trust. It's out. 3 ETFs gone. 3 different reasons. JEPI failed on dividend growth, VOO failed on yield, DIVO failed on track record. The one fund left on Josh's list is the most boring one of the 4. It doesn't pay the highest yield, it doesn't grow the fastest, it doesn't use any clever strategy. But it's the only fund projected to pay Josh over $5,000 a month and still reach the $1 million portfolio valuation. Before we get to that projection, let's look at what makes this fund different from every other dividend ETF Josh has seen. The fund is SCHD, the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. SCHD tracks an index called the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index. That index has one strict rule for which companies qualify. A company has to have paid dividends for at least 10 consecutive years before SCHD will even consider holding it. That rule alone filters out almost every speculative play, every recent IPO, every growth story that hasn't proven it can pay. What's left is 105 companies, names most people recognize from daily life: Texas Instruments, United Health, Qualcomm, Chevron, Coca-Cola, ConocoPhillips, Pepsi, Verizon, Procter & Gamble, Amgen. The kind of businesses people buy from every day without thinking about it. Then there's the fee. SCHD charges 0.06% a year. The median ETF charges around 0.5%. SCHD is 88% cheaper than average. On Josh's $35,000, that works out to about $21 a year in fees. Basically nothing. Now the track record on income. SCHD has paid a dividend every single quarter for 14 years straight. Through COVID, through the 2022 bear market, through every scare in between. Never missed a payment. But payments showing up isn't enough. They have to grow too. And SCHD has grown its dividend for 14 consecutive years. The price track record matters too. Over the last 10 years, SCHD's share price has been up 136%, more than doubled. So even before counting a single dividend, the original investment grew significantly. Now here's the part most channels skip. Josh wants to be honest about it. Over those same 10 years, the S&P 500 actually beat SCHD on return. Why does that gap exist? SCHD's index rules screen out the highest flying tech names because most of them don't pay enough dividends. So SCHD doesn't ride the Nvidias and Teslas of the world. That's the cost. That's also the reason SCHD pays over $5,000 a month by retirement instead of VOO's $140. The design is the trade-off. Now, Josh runs SCHD against his 4 criteria. Dividend yield, 3.29%, strong. Dividend growth, 10.43% a year over the last decade, strong. Price appreciation, 8.45% annually, strong. Track record, 14 years through 2 bear markets, strong. Every box checked. SCHD is the only fund on Josh's shortlist that hits all 4. So now he runs the math. 2 ways. First, what happens if he invests the full $35,000 today and lets it compound for 30 years? Then, the version that works even if he doesn't have $35,000 sitting in savings. Let's start with Path 1, the $35,000 one-time investment. Josh buys SCHD with the full amount and reinvests his dividends. No more contributions after that. By the end of year 1, the account would sit at $39,109, up about $4,000, half from the share price climbing, half from reinvested dividends buying more shares. Modest. The compounding hasn't really kicked in yet, it's just starting to build. Skip ahead to year 10, the balance reaches $109,181, paying $3,813 a year in dividends. The original $35,000 would more than triple over that decade, and the dividends Josh reinvests each quarter would be noticeably bigger now, because the share count keeps growing and the per-share dividend keeps growing. Two engines, both running. Year 20, the account is projected at $365,036, paying $15,395 a year. The loop is running on itself. Then year 30, the projections show the account landing at $1,327,010. The dividend that year, $67,470 annually, which comes out to about $5,623 every single month. $35,000, one investment, never touched again, never a single share sold, and by year 30, projected to pay Josh more every month than the median American takes home from a full-time job. The bar from earlier, $4,100 a month after taxes. SCHD's projection lands at $5,623. That clears the income bar by over $1,500 a month. And the $1 million portfolio? The projections show SCHD crossing that bar well before year 30. By year 30, $1.3 million sitting in the account. Both bars cleared. If you have $35,000 sitting in savings, this is your version. But what about everyone else? What if you don't have $35,000 lying around? What if you're starting from zero? That's the next scenario, and it's the one that makes this whole video work for anyone. For this path, Josh doesn't have $35,000 sitting in a savings account. Most people don't. So this time, he's starting with $0 in the brokerage account, and every day, he puts $12 into SCHD and reinvests any dividends it pays. By the end of year 1, Josh would have put in $4,380 of his own money. This sets the stage for future growth. By year 10, the balance is projected to reach $77,460. Josh would have contributed about $43,800 of his own money by this point. The other $33,000 would come from share price growth and reinvested dividends doing their work in the background. Year 20, the account is projected at $339,510. Josh's contributions over those 20 years would total about $87,600, but the account is almost 4 times that. The compounding is doing the heavy lifting now. Every new dividend Josh reinvests is buying shares that pay their own dividends, which buy more shares. Then year 30. The projections show the account landing at $1,318,655. The dividend that year? $66,823 annually, or about $5,569 every single month. Now the honest trade-off. Path 2 requires more total dollars from Josh's pocket. Over 30 years, his contributions would add up to about $131,400. Path 1 was $35,000 once and never again, so Path 1 is more efficient, but only if you have $35,000 today. If you don't, Path 2 gets you to almost the exact same destination. It just costs you patience instead of cash. If you want to know how to reach $2,800 a month in dividend income 20 years faster, click the video on screen to find out.